da 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 da.
For our third and final panel of artists in the afternoon, the right passion and purpose. I intentionally saved what I consider to the best for last. The reason being is that oftentimes as we seek out our passion and our purpose, we don't hear from the ones who have paved the way and laid the foundation and can speak to our life experience. One of the things I do love about our event is that it is a multi-generational event. And so you'll hear in just a moment the stories of triumph, the history, the evolution of each one of these individuals. I have to my immediate left, Penny Duncan Stephens, author of currently 2 books, Atlanta native daughter, Doris Thomas, and poet extraordinaire, spiritual poet extraordinaire, Latanya Mack. Let's give these wonderful ladies a hand. So, I'm gonna start with Miss Penny. To quote Langston Hughes, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Tell us about your story, your works, and why it is so important for you to convey your experience to the masses.
Like one of those panelists, where do I start? Okay, my story started when I was a little girl in a family of 4, and my mom had a series of nervous breakdowns. My dad was working construction and trying to manage feeding us and also supporting his alcohol abuse. When he found out that they had come to the house to find out why my sister and brother were not in school and that social services might be coming to try to take us out of the home since I was the baby, he took me to a older family and left me there and said he would be back in 2 weeks, and he never returned. The family was an older family in their 50s and really didn't want a little bratty kid around. and so I really experienced emotional, mental, physical, and even sexual abuse while living with the Smiths. I lived with them for 12 years, and to say the least, I wasn't a happy child, but I didn't really know what happiness was because other than the fact that, until I was about 2 and a half living with my family, I could remember that. But anyway, what happened was that after I was abused and raped by a 30-year-old grandson of theirs, my sister, who was also in foster care, attended the same church that I went to, and I told her what had happened, and so she said, I'm going to tell my foster mom because that's just not right. That's just not right. And so that was the first sign of hope in the 12 years that I lived with them. The foster mom said, I'm going to give you enough money to take the bus to come to my house because I'm going to take you to the police station because what you've experienced is the sexual abuse is not right.
So because I don't want you to tell everything, I want them to buy the book.
Okay.
The emotional, physical, sexual trauma, let's just call the thing a thing. It was trauma. And I can even feel your angst now as you recall and recount those experiences. Why is it so doggone important for us to talk about this?
It is important because as a child, back in the day, it was, you didn't tell about your personal business out. You know, they said, that's family. You know, you don't tell people what goes on in the house. So I lived with all of these secrets inside, afraid to express myself. And so what is important for me to relate is that not only me as a female, but also males experience some of the same things that I have been through. And I just want to say, hell no, don't let it happen. Speak it, tell it. It's your story.
We all know that covered things don't heal well.
That's right.
And may I ask, how long did it take you to get to this place and space to where you were willing to share your story? Because again, children, we were taught, many of us were taught, that as children we were to be seen and not heard. So, and we carry that, and we carry that guilt, we carry that shame, we carry all of that with us throughout our entire lives. So how did you get to that place and space of being comfortable enough to say, this is my story and owning your truth?
Okay, I call it a divine intervention, but I need to step back just a little bit. When I went to the police station with the foster mom, they had the grandson come in, took a lie detector test and all of that stuff. But anyway, we left there with me going back with the Smiths because that was their grandson and they would not press charges against him. But my spark of hope was there was, out of this lily white police station, one black social worker that they had me meet with at the end that said, I am so sorry that all of this has happened. It's not right. But if you ever need to talk, here's my card and here's a dime. It only took a dime,
Wow.
to call in a phone booth at that time. And so when I went back home, a lot of the same abuse was happening while I was pregnant. And I did call the social worker and she said, Penny, she said, this is just sad. I'm so sorry, but I'm glad you called me. And if you need to talk again, but you know there's nothing that I can do. But through it all, God was in the background. 2 weeks later, a policewoman came to the house and said, I have a petition to take this child out of this home. And I'm telling you, if that wasn't God, it was.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So I'm gonna stop Miss Penny right there. If you want to know the rest of the story, she's got both of her books here, Through Penny's Eyes and Childhood Secrets, Silence and Secrets. So make sure you stop by her table because it is a powerful story and something that we for years, and we're getting a lot better about it now. Talking about trauma, especially sexual trauma that happens in black families. You know, Miss Penny's family that's not the first time and it won't be the last, unfortunately, but we need to start giving people power, empowering people to talk about these experiences. And so thank you so very much for sharing, Miss Penny. Wow. So we have a native daughter of Atlanta, Miss Doris Thomas. Miss Doris, tell us about who you are and your experience.
Well, I am a native Atlantean. September the 22nd, I will be 81 years old. And I grew up in this area, in Summerhill, but in this area also, because Pittman Park is around the corner. And that was the only pool we had to go to. We had to walk from Capitol Avenue over here to the pool. So my history, my stories are written around historical events pretty much. I grew up, as I said, around Atlanta. My first memory I have is living on Mitchell Street. It's about a block from Northside Drive. And I recently, I guess just before I wrote this story, no, I haven't, this will go into the next book. I went to the library to fact check myself because I didn't remember how old I was. And I found that I lived on Mitchell Street in 1944. No, not 1948. And what I remember about Mitchell Street is that we had 2 roosters in the compound. And the only way you could either go through the yard or go around. I didn't want to go around because it was too long. So I took my brother and we climbed over the fence to go through the yard. And with the roosters on the other end of the yard. When we got to the middle of the yard, the mean rooster started toward us with his spurs up. And I go, Lord, this rooster is going to kill us. So I told my brother, I said, let's run as fast as you can. But when we got almost to the other side, I saw a bicycle rim. And I picked the bicycle rim up and I hit the rooster upside the head and knocked him. I thought I killed him. And that was going to be worse than the rooster attacked him because we would have gotten out, but I would have gotten my butt. But we managed to get to the end before he regained conscience.
Well, Ms. Doris, if the rooster had died, at least you was at dinner.
I don't know. I might not have been able to eat it. But I write about things like that, and the fact that Billy Wright and Little Richard used to come to the house.
Wow.
So I'm doing research on, to make sure that my facts, my memory, and it does line up with what I remember.
Wow. So you've lived through an amazing portion of Atlanta history, from the creation of the I-20 corridor, the 7585, that literally split the city.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, I grew up on Rawson Street in Summer Hill. I-20 tore that area out. You don't have that anymore. And for me, well, it also divided, Grady Homes was 2 or 3 blocks over from where we live. And for me, the I-20 just cleared out an entire black community.
Wow.
And so we would walk to Grady Hospital from where we live. But it didn't clear that out because the bridge, going over 20. But by the time they did that, we had already moved. And now I'm going to tell you a little story about living in that area. One of the stories. I had a baby aunt that I write about in this book, a baby cousin. And she developed pneumonia. And I had to go every day to feed her. I had to go to Grady every day to feed her. And so Grady Homes was on, let me try to give you a picture, Memorial Drive,
Yes.
Capitol Avenue.
Yes.
And on either side was Grady Homes, not Grady.
Great hospital?
Not Grady Hospital, what was in there? Capitol Homes.
Capitol, okay.
Capitol Homes. And so I had to go twice a day to feed her. And on the left side, it was in the summertime, there were a bunch of white kids sitting on the porch. And one day they decided to say, "Hey, nigger girl." And I'm going, I was mad because I had to go walk over there first. Don't ask me what happened to me. I must have lost my mind because I ran up on that porch to hit the little boy who called me a nigger. He ran in the house. I ran in the house and knocked him over a sofa. And I'm thinking, these kids, they're looking at me like I'm crazy. They didn't get themselves together until I had ran out of the house, up the street, and when they decided that they were going to try to run me. But I guess, the Lord gave me some legs, because I ran. So I had to go all the way, I had to go 2 blocks over to get to Grady from then on. But I decided there were a gang of boys, Sugar, JoJo, and all my set. I'm tired of walking out of the way. Can y'all father go with me? Well, they came up with another plan to let me walk in front of them, and they walked behind. When I got to the apartment, they ran out. And then Sugar and the other gang ran out, and we fought on the corner of Memorial Drive and Capitol Avenue until police sirens.
Wow, okay. So, yeah, so you were a little bit of a I'm not going to say a troublemaker, because you were minding your business.
I was minding my business.
But you didn't take no stuff either. So where can we find these stories?
This on Amazon.
Okay.
And Miss Penny is in here, one of them. She has a story in here too.
And the name of the book is?
Eyes of the Beholders.
Wow.
And this book is written by 12 senior women. I think the youngest might have been 55. And the oldest was about 94, but she passed before we got her stories in. I think I'm now the oldest writer in the book. But they are excellent stories, a lot of, first, we have a young lady who was the first aviator in here, and Penny's stories are really, all the stories are good. All of them are good.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing the stories. Wow. And last but not least, we have Latanya Mack. Now, I've been told that when you retire, you're supposed to retire from something to something, right? So tell us what you retired to when you retired.
Well, I decided I wasn't going to work for anybody anymore. I'm going to work for me. And so I kind of wrote a little bit about that.
So how long were you working before you retired? And what were you doing?
I worked in the hospital in Chicago for 35, 40 years. And I retired at 65. And I kind of got her, my young sister here, a little bit beat. She's 80 and I'm 81. So in Chicago, we celebrated. We did a lot of celebrating. And so I kind of like to still celebrate in my life. And so that's what I retired to do, celebrate.
So you started writing, and why did you start writing? Or you published your first book, and how did that come about?
Well, I published the book when, at it's 70. I was 70 when I published my first book, but I started writing a few years earlier because I had a spinal fusion, and I was hospitalized for more than a month. And during that time, different things started coming to me, and I decided that I would just kind of jot down things, and over the years, it became a book. And my family and friends encouraged me to publish them. So then Derek started publishing.
So how many books have you published?
I'm working on the 7th book
Now, she keeps saying that this is her last one. But at 81, you keep finding inspiration to keep writing. And where does this inspiration come from?
Just feelings as I talk to people and I see people, and things come to me to say to them. And so mostly I won't say them, I'll just write them and give them to them. And over the years, I think as I moved from Chicago to California to Georgia, I wasn't able to see the people face to face, and I just kept the notes, and this is how the books came about. It's more inspiration and confirmation for people that I feel.
Wow, wow. So, you three ladies, women of wisdom and of power, who have overcome traumatic experiences, who've lived through a lot of historical events, who have encouraged family and friends. What words of wisdom can you impart upon us in here and those of us out there relative to fulfilling our passion and purpose? What would you say to us?
I would say, right, it's already been said this morning, but I would say, write your story. Be authentic, be transparent, be you. Because there's only one of you. Someone told me once, who I found out was, I don't know who's the side chick, them or me. The other woman to me, I don't know. But anyway, I was told when they were caught up that there is so much, you're so much like them. And I said, baby, there is only one me. You will never find another woman like me. So you just go on with them. I'll be fine.
Miss Penny, what advice would you give?
Well, mine is just real simple. Everybody has a story. You have a story, you have a story, you have a story. It's not my story, but it's your story. And your story is important, especially as Black people. We need to talk more about what goes on in our lives. Not to get lengthy, but in my second book, I talked about the abuse from other family members that happened to me. I had never told anybody, but the secrets, don't keep them inside. Get it out there, tell it. You never know who you may be helping. Somebody else will say, that happened to me, but I was afraid to tell anybody. But after reading your book, I can voice that.
Awesome. And Miss Penny does have a third book coming. You know, if she don't beat up a publisher first. But she's got a third book coming that continues to chronicle her stories of how she overcame these traumatic situations in her life. Miss Latanya, what words, what advice would you give the people in here and out there about living in their passion and purpose?
It ain't over till God says so.
That part.
We all have purpose, and the closer that we get into our purpose, the happier we are. You are happy when you're in your purpose, and you just have to accept yourself for who you are and what you know that you're here to do. And the next book that I'm publishing is called Evolving. And so Evolving says what I would say to my younger self. Just be me, be okay with me, love me, and we have a purpose, and your purpose is always pursued, as long as you allow it. So just be okay with you. Just be okay. It's all right.
Wow.
Love you.
Wow.
Be
Yes, ma'am.
do you.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
One little tip, Dion being here today, stopping at our table made me, I shared a little tip with him about writing that I want to share. I've learned a timeline, starting with your date of birth and 10 years on. Mine 1942, 1952. What happened that you remember or know about from your birth to my birth, 1952, and then 1952 to 1962. Yes, and think about it, and that really has helped me a lot, just writing that timeline. And it can be a timeline of childhood, that would include college, work, any of it, so that you can pull from there and start writing your story.
Awesome, awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Penny Duncan Stephens, Doris Thomas, and Latanya Mack. Wow, thank you all so very much for sharing.
Dreaming, all that's on my mind is, oh,